Hello, I'm Paul Peterson. Seniors, like everyone else, have the right to feel safe at all times, especially in their own homes. Research shows that those who appear confident and take security precautions are less likely to be victims of crime. On today's program, we will suggest ways in which seniors can increase their feeling of confidence in their own security by reducing the opportunities for crime. Stay tuned for Aging in LA. 5% of the population of California are seniors. And because of longer, healthier lives, by the year 2020, 16% of Californians will be 60 years of age or older. Although seniors worry about crime, it's interesting to note that although seniors are victims of crime less often than younger people, the effects of crime on seniors is often more severe. On today's program, we will talk about security for seniors in their home. We'll also look at fraud, elder abuse, and crimes in convalescent homes. Joining us today from the Los Angeles Police Department are Officer Rosa Torres and Detective Lenora Lindsay. Thanks to both of you for joining us. This is a large and growing problem here in Los Angeles, these crimes against seniors, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Now, what kind of resources are available for seniors who, it's easy to get anxious. Can they call the LAPD and get some advice, or
Sure.
Do we have someone that goes into the community to talk to them?
Sure. Every station has senior lead officers. If there is a particular problem going on, where suspects are targeting elderly, they can certainly call the police station and ask for the senior leads. We are in charge of investigating distraction burglaries.
Now, meaning what? Now, that's an interesting term. Is this where someone keeps you occupied at the front door and somebody is around the back?
Correct. We've had many reports where suspects, usually they work in pairs of 2 or 3,
Sure.
sometimes a woman and a child, sometimes 2 men, sometimes 2 women. They knock on the elderly person's door, answer the door, and they come up with a ruse. We've just moved into the neighborhood. We want to fix our wall, and we want to show you that what we're going to be doing with our wall, because we're going to be living behind you.
Oh yeah, and our seniors they're so trusting. They're from a different era. They don't expect people to have those designs on them. Now, how do they know where all the seniors are? Are people casing the neighborhoods, or are they getting mailing lists?
A lot of times the seniors may be out in front of their residence and watering the grass or just coming home. Daily activities. What we suggest a lot is that change your activities during the day. They see the senior citizen out in front. Maybe the grass is overgrown, the yard is not kept up, and they notice that this senior citizen may be living by themselves.
Right.
So they'll
Excuse me, let me interrupt for a second, because you mentioned distraction, and criminals use distraction to burgle homes, especially seniors. Now, the LAPD has produced a video that warns of the dangers of allowing strangers into your home. Let's take a look.
Hello. Hi, I'm your neighbor from down the street, and I seem to have lost my cat. She's pregnant, and I'm just really concerned.
Recently, numerous elderly citizens in the city of Los Angeles have become victims of distraction burglaries.
Well, certainly. Come on in. We'll go through.
Thank you so much.
The distraction burglary differs from a standard burglary in that the suspects in these particular crimes confront the victims.
Distraction burglaries involve a number of different types of ruses.
The suspects will tell the victims that there's a cat in the backyard, usually a pregnant cat, or their son or small child threw a ball in the backyard. that they're tree trimmers and they'd like to trim their trees or their bushes, or they disguise themselves as utility workers and they need to check the water pipes and the electrical wires in the rear of the location.
In many types of ruses, the main objective of the suspect is to get the victims into their backyard. Recently, a 70-year-old woman was a victim of this ruthless crime.
At about 3:15, the doorbell rang. I should never have done it, but I opened up the door to this woman, and she said, "Oh, I'm your new backyard neighbor, and I wanted to introduce myself. And because you have such pretty trees in the back, I want to put some topping over it because we're going to sandblast the house. I really don't know my backyard neighbors." I looked at her with a little doubt, but then I said, I really don't want to antagonize her. She's going to be my backyard neighbor. So I very foolishly led her into the house and into the backyard. And into the process, I forgot to close the lock on the door. She knew every part of my backyard, and she knew my neighbor's backyard. She said, "Well, the pool's too close to the house, and your fence is rickety." I said, "I know." She said, "Oh, but don't worry. We're going to fix everything. You don't have to worry about anything."
Well, the suspects in the case are very smooth. They're very good with their verbal skills, and they're able to fool the victims into believing whatever it is that they're trying to get the victims to believe. And it generally only takes a few minutes, and the victims are very compliant, and the suspects make off with their valuables in just a few minutes.
I'm learning from my own mistakes, and at this age, I didn't think I had that much to learn, but I obviously do.
Incredible. These are schemes, aren't they? They are tried and proven methods of predators to take advantage of people. Is this
Right.
part of the bunco forgery little detail that I used to hear about?
It is.
It is?
That is part of it. Yes,
Yeah,
it
well,
is.
but I know for a while I was really fascinated about the schemes that were used to separate people from their money, but it's really gotten awful for seniors because they are so vulnerable. Not only trusting, but they may have amassed some property, they may have jewelry, they are especially vulnerable to these kind of crimes.
Right. Most of the victims are elderly. The victims we've encountered between the age of 60 to about 90, 93 years old.
Yes.
Very trusting. They're very lonely. Usually when the suspect comes through the door, it's the first person they've seen in weeks,
Yes, well.
months sometimes. And yeah, very trusting, allow them to come in. Yes, most of the victims do keep money at home. For whatever reason, they don't trust the banks a lot, so they do keep a lot of money at home.
Well, they lived through the Depression, and bank failures, and
right.
there's
There's jewelry.
Yeah, but and a lot of memories. But sometimes, I'm sure for these crooks, what else to call them? They come to a senior who has some impairments, maybe physical impairments, but probably most dangerous is the mental impairments. Not even to understand that they're at risk. When you investigate this, do you find that the people who commit these crimes have done it over and over and over?
That's right. They have patterns that they follow. Like the females, we call them the transit burglaries as well. But they're friendly. They'll come up to the victim and hug them, or they might have children with them. That's these type of transit burglaries. And they want to give them a kiss, and they take advantage of the senior because they're vulnerable to, and they want to show them around, and that's when they go into the rooms and distract them, and next thing you know, they use a cell phone, as we saw in the video,
Right.
the cell phone, and say it's a clear and say goodbye. Or they used to be an old neighbor, but they love to be friendly. They're not violent, so. They're lonely. The senior citizens are lonely.
Whole businesses have developed, swapping these mailing lists, especially for, they have a new mortgage plan, or wouldn't you like to get out of your house and get the equity out of it? And gosh, I remember sitting at Annie Ruth's house, and all of a sudden there was a realtor at the door. And she, who had some mental impairment, had invited this person to her house in order to sell it. It's like, whoa, excuse me, you've just talked to an 89-year-old woman whose faculties aren't there, and yet this person was prepared to take advantage of her.
And seniors can actually stop the crime right at the door. if a person comes up to you and says, you know, I'm from the Department of Water and Power, well, show me your ID. Ask for identification. If you're still not sure that this person is legitimate, you can definitely ask for their supervisor. And if that still doesn't work, you should call the police.
Yeah, or if nothing else, come back in a half hour so your son-in-law or somebody can come by.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, when you must get a lot of calls at all of the stations around town that something's going on here. You know, Grandma's money is missing, or Grandpa's car was sold. Do you, as like assign a detail to go out and follow up on these calls?
Oh, that's where they call the elder abuse unit for financial abuse, and that's where they call our section where it comes to distraction burglaries. It's so important that the neighborhood gets involved and also looks out. If they know that there's a senior citizen that lives by herself or him by himself, that's how important it is that the neighborhood or neighborhood watch gets involved, as well as family members. Family members has got to get more involved with the senior citizens.
Well, unfortunately, however, many cases of elder abuse are being visited on the senior by family members, and that is really troubling. You know, it's difficult to care or be part of the care system for a senior, and sometimes that frustration boils over, and it's not just property crimes, but it can be physical threats and abuse.
And that's when Department of Public Services has to step in and assist us. And we do work with them on these type of situations.
Now, are you able to get people in the community, like go to senior centers and remind seniors who have congregated either at a senior center at a park or like we have a senior center in our community of Gardena, to come in and talk to people and say, here's what to look out for?
Yes, we have. The detective you saw in the video, Jeff Anderson, and I, we both have been out to senior citizen centers and spoken to seniors. And with the video, because we can't be at all the senior citizens at all time, we're investigating these crimes. So with this video, we've distributed it to a lot of the centers. We put it on our website, and people can actually look at it right from their computer at home.
Yeah, well, let's give that website here now. Let me see if I remember. lapdonline.org. Right, .org. So there are information sources out there.
Yes, there is.
Sometimes when there's an elderly person in your family, the distance is really difficult. It's probably a good idea to get to know your loved one's neighbor, maybe the post person, whoever's delivering the mail. That's a good idea, I think, because they're often the first responders.
And you brought up a point about the post person, is that we had one particular case where the post person had observed some male suspects in the area. He'd been in that area for 17 years. So he was a good resource for us as far as doing the investigation. Or another one is recently Meals on Wheels. There was a witness in there in that type of situation, and he was a good source for us to continue the investigation and look further.
Yeah, and also that if something seems too good to be true, it's probably trouble afoot. I know years ago the schemes of coming to repair your driveway. We can fix your driveway cracks by these sort of gypsy contractors. But seniors are especially vulnerable to it because they're told, well, just write us the check for $600.
Right.
And the work never gets done. Wow. Now,
Many
yes?
different ruses are being used by these particular suspects. I mentioned the back wall fixing, utilities, DWP. My child's ball has gone into the backyard. Many of them, and they're very, very believable. The senior citizen is very trusting, allows them right into the house, get them into the backyard, and that's when the second suspect enters the front door usually. Right,
but it can be a carefully crafted sweepstakes entry that promises the moon if you only buy these products. I know there have been many cases already which have been where their guilty verdicts have been passed out.
Sure, and there's what we call the Nigerian scam, where they send them to invest and send the money to a
I get
bank in
those.
Nigeria, and they're out $25,000, $50,000.
Yeah.
So yes, it's scams that are out there, and once again, the senior citizens are vulnerable. But you know, we are too, and
Yes.
so. But as far as them, you know, they want to take care of their assets and see if they get further, you know, because they're thinking about their future.
Well, I worry about physical safety too. I know at the beginning of the show we were talking about walking with confidence, you know, and don't let yourself appear to be a victim. Things like not walking with your purse kind of, you know, behind you where it was just such an obviously right target. Can people get instructions on this, or is there like a pamphlet they can get their hands on to help them understand that these are some of the signs that predators look for?
I do know that some of the senior citizens, they do have the pamphlets as far as security and to be aware of your surroundings. It's so important. Keep your keys away from your purse,
Right.
not, you know, in your purse. You know, as far as credit cards, the senior citizens don't need a whole wallet full of
Right,
credit
exactly.
cards.
Oh,
And
that-
once again, the
that
Social
flashing
Security
money.
card.
Yeah,
Do not carry your Social Security card in your purse or
Yeah,
your
and
wallet.
watch out for this juror scam where they're calling and say, we need your Social Security number. Wow, it's time for a short break. And when we return, we will continue our discussion of security for seniors. So please stay tuned for Aging in LA.
The visit to the observatory starts here. Online at www.griffithobservatory.org.
Choose a time, make your reservations up to 2 days before you go.
You'll have to park down the hill at one of the 2 designated parking lots, and then you have to take a shuttle to the observatory. They thought of everything.
Let's make it happen.
In back of me, and then he gets in front of me, and he pushes around, drops everything in front of me, and what a mess. Then I went in another room, and then one of the cats got scared. And I waited there, and the lady broke. What a disaster. Oh my God, the dress. No, she's fine. She's sleeping.
Welcome back to Aging in LA. Our topic today, senior crime prevention, and our guests are Officer Rosa Torres and Detective Lenora Lindsay. We were talking about Social Security numbers and protecting your private information. Seniors just don't understand what bank vaults can be opened if they supply their Social Security number, do they?
No, they don't. They don't realize that Social Security is the main ticket to obtaining credit,
Sure.
no matter if it's a checking account or a credit card. You don't need a date of birth or just the Social Security to open up. And a lot of the senior citizens get the applications for credit card companies.
Oh, those are endless. You are pre-approved.
Pre-approved.
Oh, gosh.
Correct. And we do have them, individuals that go around and steal the mail from the mailboxes, obtain this information, and apply it in the senior citizen's name.
You know, my wife is a nurse, and so she's very protective of medical records, and it's a part of her mentality. But for me, it's like, okay, this is in, I'm tossing it in the trash. It just, I have to tell myself, wait a second, this contains private information, and that can be used to your detriment.
Right. I mean, a lot of the stuff that's mailed to you, a lot of the mailings that's sent to you has your information. Yes, like my partner was saying, suspects will go through your mail.
Yeah.
So any material that has any of your information should be shredded, whether it be by the person or a relative, but it should be shredded. It should not be thrown in the trash can.
Let me ask you a question. When you see, especially in those cases where you're beginning to see mental faculties begin to slip, can a family contact LAPD and say, look, I have a situation here. I need some assistance because I'm afraid my grandma or grandpa are really vulnerable. Is that a call that you can take and they can come in the door?
What we would do is basically contact Department of Public Service, Social Services. They will do a check. We just fill out a form, fax it to them, and yes, they will do a follow-up, check on the individual, the senior citizen, and see if they can assist in any way.
I'm just thinking of the many things that police work requires these days. You know, yesterday we were talking about having a relief center if we have heat waves or when it gets too cold. And often frontline officers are the people who have to say to a senior, you know, maybe it's time for you to get down to the Y, a place where there are services. It's got to be a challenge when you look at the diversity of our communities, because you may have to do that in 20 different languages.
Right. I had a particular incident. I met a lady who was a victim of a distraction burglary last year. 93 years old, lives alone. Her son rarely visits. I went to her house. She had all the windows closed. It was in the middle of July, very, very hot. She did not even have a fan. The food that she had was not good. She had very little food. So once we did our investigation, I contacted the Department of Aging. I felt so bad for her. I had to have somebody come out and help her out. They did. They went out and got her fans at least. But yet these are the cases that we do encounter, and a lot of times we do have to refer to other agencies to get some assistance for the elderly.
Well, but that's good. You know, it's funny, we talk about healthcare silos, how so often things are isolated, but in this business of patrolling our communities, you have to know where the resources are too. What numbers do you call? I know when we first were facing these senior issues, we were at a loss. I mean, there were so many things we needed to know. Access, transit, and security issues, and what are we going to do? Auntie Ruth has broken her hip, and the house is going to be vacant for the next 5 months. Those are real challenges, and people need to know that they can call somebody to get some assistance or guidance, if you will. Now, are you part of that 311 network where if there's a policing issue, elder abuse, or maybe some kind of, do you have like a strike team that can step up quickly in case of some sense of urgency that are a physical threat to a senior?
Well, anything of urgency is definitely call the police. The police will respond. And, you know, they're the first responders,
Yes,
and we're the ones that go out and investigate the crime once everything is safe and the suspects are gone, the victim is taken care of. But yeah, definitely call the police if it's something of an urgent matter.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the patterns. You know, we briefly, between our public service announcements, talked about computers, which can be the bane of your life. But boy, they are there as a great tool or as the bane of all of our existence. They have made people so vulnerable. Information is out there, it's accessible, and people who maybe don't have the best of intentions, they have computers too.
Sure. You know, you find that the individuals obtain the senior citizens' bank information. You know that a 90-year-old female or male doesn't go on the internet to do their banking.
Right.
Okay?
Yes, indeed.
So they'll take that bank information and go ahead into the bank online system, for example, and now they are doing online banking in that senior citizen's name because they never went in there. They now obtain a password, they start doing the banking and the transactions online.
Right. And the senior may not
Not
be
having
vigilant
knowledge.
about tracking
That's
what's
correct.
going on and find out that they bought a place in Aruba.
Right.
Gosh.
You know, thousands of dollars have been taken out of their account.
Of course.
Through online banking.
You know,
So it's important.
You know, we hear it happening too. You know, the news is forever filled with someone who has been disadvantaged, and you always shake your head and go, well, how did that happen? And the way it happens is that this part of our brain, that forebrain, is the very first mental faculty to deteriorate as you become older. So that people forget, but senior people can forget about what the consequences. I mean, they may have been very vigilant in their 40s and careful in raising their children, and suddenly in their 70s they become, oh, so trusting. It's amazing how that works.
And once again, I think it's very important. That's when the family members have to get involved.
Or the neighborhood.
Or the
You know,
neighborhood.
I appreciate what you said about be familiar with your surroundings. You know,
Correct.
there's bound to be someone in the neighborhood that in times of crisis, or maybe just because you're aware, their welfare is in your hands. And that does happen. I know I see it sometimes with traffic. The unfamiliar car, especially the pickup that's loaded with equipment. And you're going, now who the heck is that in the neighborhood? We talked about some of the things that seniors can do. The confidence to change your routine, be careful with your private and your personal information. When these situations, when these abusive situations occur, and you identify, you go out and investigate the case, are you finding that you've caught a person who's done this 100 times and you just caught him this once? Is that how it works?
Oh, yes.
There are career criminals, right, who are preying on
Definitely.
seniors. Yeah.
You know, the suspects that we have encountered from our experience, what we know about them, is that they actually start teaching their children when they're very young how to commit these crimes. So when they're adults, they are excellent at it. They are professionals at it, very good at it.
That's all the time we have for today's show. Thanks to our guests from the Los Angeles Police Department, Officer Rosa Torres and Detective Lenora Lindsay. The Los Angeles Police Department suggests 3 general rules to promote senior crime prevention. Number 1, stay alert. Be tuned into your surroundings. Don't be taken by surprise. Be aware and be prepared, even in your own neighborhood. Number 2, stand tall, walk confidently. Don't show fear, don't look like a victim. And number 3, trust your instincts. If you feel uncomfortable in a place or situation, leave. Leave right away and get help if necessary. The Los Angeles Department of Aging produces this program with CityView, Channel 35, so that seniors living in Los Angeles and surrounding communities are well informed on the many issues that face them in everyday life. And also to let you know of the many services that the Department of Aging offers our senior citizens. Now, we'd like to hear from you with your comments on the program, what you like, what you